From Ministry and Frontline Assembly to Skinny Puppy, we're taking a look at samplers that helped shape industrial music. Introduced in '79, the Fairlight CMI is a digital synthesizer, music sampler, and digital audio workstation. It was one of the earliest music workstation with a built-in sampler, and is known today for establishing the word sampling in music. It gained major attention in the early '80s, and it competed with the Synclavier from New England Digital. In '82, the second version of the Fairlight came out and was released at a price of £30,000. Yes, £30,000 in '82.
And I read that music nerds are bursting into tears when they see it.
The Fairlight CMI Series 2 was super popular in music during the mid-'80s and early '80s. Two of its most famous sampling was the Orc sampling, that I'm sure you probably heard before. Let me know which song you spotted it, and also the R1 vocal sampling. If you spot a Fairlight sample somewhere, let me know in the comment section. Then the Fairlight Series 3 came out in '85. And I obviously can't talk about the Fairlight without talking about Ministry. Al Jurgensen from Ministry grabbed one after the band signed with Sire Records. Yes, this is the real Fairlight they used. You can see some Revco and Ministry writings on it. That Fairlight got a serious workout from Wax Trax Records artists, who used its sampling and sequencing to pump out tracks that defined the edgy sound of late '80s industrial. There's Fairlight sounds all over Land of and Honey by Ministry. Jurgensen even said that it's funny because the total supposed guitar rock hit, which I hate to this day, is Stigmata, and that doesn't even have guitars on it. The guitars are all sampled. There's 2 chords in every riff, and the second one is bent with a pitch shifter. It's all electronic. On an interview with Sound on Sound in '83, Ministry's Paul Barker said that all the sequencing and mixing and sampling is done through the Fairlight. The Fairlight wasn't just a sampler. It was a revolution in industrial music. The Emulator 2, released in '84, was EMU's second sampler. It could record up to 17.6 seconds of sound at 8-bit quality, giving it a gritty lo-fi quality to it, which is perfect for industrial music. Although it was not the first commercial sampler, the Emulator was innovative in its integration with computer technology. It stored sample on those old-school 5-inch floppy disks. Let me know if, just like me back in the days, you used those discs. Between '84 and '88, the Emulator 2 got a bunch of upgrades, like the Emulator 2 Plus with double the memory, and the Emulator 2 Plus HD, which added a 20 megabytes hard drive. In '88, it was replaced by the much improved Emulator 3. Even though modern samplers have left them behind, the Emulator is still loved as a classic. When I think about the E2, I think about, of course, Depeche Mode. The E2 was so big that it even appeared in movies.
Excuse me.
That one is a classic. It's basically one of the most iconic sampler ever. It was also used for the soundtrack of my favorite movie of all time, Terminator 2, and also on 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine.
We had an Emulator 2, and we had an Emax, and we had a PPG Wave, and we had an Oberheim expander.
Front 242 used it a lot, as you can see in this 80s TV show footage of a live performance. You can clearly see Patrick on an Emulator 2. Let's have a listen to some of its iconic sounds. The Ensoniq Mirage came out in '84. The Mirage was Ensoniq's first commercial product. Historically, the Mirage was also one of the first affordable sampler. There have been many versions of the Mirage during its lifetime. In '85, the DMS-8 rack-mount version of the DSK-8 was released. Then in '86, the DSK-1 appeared. If you're after a classic Ensoniq sampler, the EPS and EPS 16 Plus are usually the go-to options. But there's something nostalgic about the Mirage, thanks to its timeless sample library. Usually when you think about Ensoniq Mirage and industrial, you instantly think Skinny Puppy. And who's better to talk about the Ensoniq Mirage than Kevin Keith himself?
And so we talked and he showed massive interest, but what Drain brought into the band and brought along was his whole new experience with like the Mirage, the new sampler of the day, the Ensoniq Mirage. You know, that thing was like the spaceship when it first arrived. It made people get rid of everything, you know, and start thinking on that level because it was affordable.
I really love the look and the sound of the Mirage. Let's have a listen to some of its sound. Released in '85, the Akai 612 was the first model in its series. Then in '86, Akai launched the S900, aimed at being both high quality and affordable. It could sample audio in 12-bit quality and could record up to 63 seconds of sounds. 2 years later, they released the S950, which had a higher sampling rate and more memory. In the same year, the S1000 came out, featuring 16-bit sampling and up to 32 megabytes of memory. The S1000 quickly became known as the top-tier hardware sampler. If you want that frontline assembly caustic grip era sound, this is it. In this interview on Kevin Key's YouTube channel, you can even hear Reese Fulber talking about the S1000.
I pulled out the S1000 a little while ago,
oh, yeah?
and just threw some stuff in, and it was that sound. I'm just
Isn't it crazy how like depending on what era of sound you want, you could go hook up your old gear and have that sound back.
The S1000 sounded like caustic grip right away.
He also said in an interview with Release magazine that caustic grip was a pretty minimal setup. All we used was an Atari, an Akai S1000 and S950. The Akai S series really defined the sound of industrial music. They were used by a lot of bands, such as Frontline Assembly, 9 Inch Nails, Skinny Puppy, Front 242, and also Ministry. When asked what was your first ever sampler, Ministry's Al Jurgensen answered, "Actually, my first sampler was a Sony Nagra portable recorder. I would walk around sampling noises and edit them on tape later, or I would dump them on a disc and place them back on an Akai 3000. You can also spot an Akai S900 mounted in the back of this picture of Skinny Puppy live in '88. And also two S1000 in this photo of the famous 9 Inch Nails 94 studio, with which, among many other things, he designed the famous kick drum of Closer, which was taken from an Iggy Pop song called Night Clubbing. Right now, producers are mostly using software samplers, but these hardware samplers were giving character to the sound. I don't miss the tiny screens to edit sounds, but I kinda miss those days. What do you think? Don't forget to check out my website for samples and also synth presets. Thanks for watching. Ciao. Al Ministry from Al Ministry. Al Ministry. What? It was one of the earliest. It was one of the. It was one of the earliest